My name is Andrew Philip Payne, and I am the Dean of the College of Architecture and Construction Management at Kennesaw State University. In January 2020, I joined the university and the College of Architecture and Construction Management, which is located on the Marietta campus. I've been so grateful for the warm welcome, our strong commitment to student success, and strategic focus on research with relevance. I am honored to serve as the Dean for the College of Architecture and Construction Management, alongside a talented group of faculty, staff, and students. As a college, our enrollment numbers are quickly increasing, which in turn allows for more robust research opportunities. In our college, the faculty and students are conducting applied research at all levels across many areas. Most notable are topics centered on construction materials and methods. My primary research interest is in universal design, a topic I became intrigued with during my undergraduate education. Primarily, I have focused on wayfinding and perceptible information. In short, I believe navigating buildings and spaces should not be considered trivial and should be a smoother process, rather than a frustrating one during an individual's experience within the space. Although my educational focus has been in architecture, I consider myself a designer, creative problem solver, an advocate for making user experiences more enjoyable. Over the last 20 years, I have focused on how users with different abilities can enjoy architecture without obstacles, either physical or mental. My current focus has shifted to public theme parks and venues and event spaces. During the 70s and 80s, a movement began in the United States where architects positioned the government for more protections for people with disabilities. This movement included access to all public spaces and was termed Design for All. As a result, in 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, was signed into law by President George H.W. Bush. This legislation was widely popular across the United States and led the way for many institutions and organizations to pursue research funding and government grants focused on handicapped accessibility. In 1989, while the ADA was being developed and passed into law, the Center for Universal Design at NC State University College of Design was formed. The center took the draft language of the ADA and expanded it to include solid design principles for everyone, not just those with disabilities. The term universal design was born. The Center for Universal Design is where I received my first exposure to how design research makes an impact on people's lives. As an undergraduate student, I participated in a simulation exercise to better understand how poor spatial design inhibits access for certain groups of users. In that case, the users were blind or had low vision. As I continued into my graduate education, my research interest narrowed to one of the 7 principles of universal design. Principle number 4, perceptible information. Having married a graphic designer, I appreciated the importance of clear and concise information and began to recognize how confusing much of the wayfinding and navigation signage was in everyday spaces. In pursuit of how I could help improve wayfinding design standards, I accepted a position as a research assistant in the Center for Universal Design while I completed my PhD. That position allowed me to dive deeper into Universal Design Principle 4 while also conducting accessibility studies of public buildings such as the NC State Legislative Office Building and the NC State Capitol Building in Raleigh, North Carolina. The role of research assistant allowed me to conduct research across many areas of architecture and product design. Specifically, I began looking at public outdoor spaces and conducting observational research and behavior tracking to understand how people move throughout these spaces. This research reflected much of what William White studied in New York City decades earlier. Although I previously relied more on quantitative data, the opportunities to collect and understand qualitative, experiential type data through observations and follow-up surveys was exciting. This gave me the chance to understand how users experience different spaces. It also helped me to identify what some may consider to be good and bad navigational signage, flow of space, or wayfinding. As I progressed to the completion of my PhD, I tailored my research question to include two very specific topics: wayfinding and blind or low vision users. The development and refinement of this research area stemmed from observing blind people using long canes to navigate, and in some cases guess their way around unfamiliar spaces. My research grew even more specific by considering how locational information was conveyed to blind users, since better signage was not an option. As such, I began investigating different construction materials used for flooring and sidewalks as a means to indicate arrival, departure, and travel between spaces. My applied PhD field research was a culmination of the previous 10 years of my education, design interest, and desire to create something beneficial for the public. I was able to incorporate quantitative and qualitative data sets, user observations, behavior tracking, and architectural design in the defense and completion of my PhD. I continue to use my research experiences in my teaching and consulting roles, and I have developed the Sight, Sound, and Movement Accessibility Workshop, which is stemmed from my undergraduate simulation experiences. I have led this workshop in various forms at multiple U.S. universities and internationally in Japan, Thailand, and England. In my faculty role, I always seek opportunities for students to conduct research and incorporate the results into their designs for their design build projects, architecture thesis development, and the design thinking cycle. I firmly believe that people can better themselves by learning through doing. As my mentor, Dean Marvin Malika, is quoted as saying, "All design begins with the dance of life." Loosely interpreted, echoes again that design can and should be a reaction to the needs of the person. In the short time I have been at KSU, I have had the opportunity to advise an undergraduate research team who focused on what effects COVID-19 had on the design studio culture. Part of their research looked at the student users, the design studio space, and whether social distancing affected their learning abilities. Again, evaluating qualitative data from users and their perception of the use of space. As Dean, I have the privilege to review and support innovative research projects developed by the faculty, much of which is generated in the classroom by engaging students in the process. One example is the Precast Concrete Institute grant, led by Professors Liz Martin, Giovanni Loretto, and Jeffrey Collins. Students are able to work in a hands-on environment with raw materials, industry professionals, and faculty experts to learn, understand, and test the precast concrete in various designs. As a design consultant, I am engaged with a theme park in Tennessee to evaluate their accessible trails and wayfinding signage. This is an exciting opportunity as it will encompass both tracking and mapping, as well as proposing new design ideas and options. This type of project is ideal as I get to employ both my research and design skills throughout the project. With these experiences, I most enjoy the brainstorming and problem solving of research. Now, as a dean, providing opportunities to that in a collaborative environment will better prepare our KSU students for whichever field they choose in the architecture or construction management industries.